There is an epidemic happening in men today. Weakness and comfort has taken place of strength and purpose. Masculinity is labeled as toxic, and women are now the ones who define what a man is more than men are. Weak fathers are raising lost boys who are at risk of never being initiated into manhood. We've grown farther and farther from God, which led us to become weaker and weaker. The man within fights back by introducing men to their true strength and purpose through God. So join me, and together we can restore true strength and purpose in men. Hello, and welcome back to the Man Within podcast. So happy to have you guys here with us today. We've got a really exciting episode waiting for you. So if this is your first time here, the Man Within is all about men, helping them in their faith, their masculinity, their health, business, mindset, anything and everything that we can do to help men grow physically, financially, mentally, and spiritually. Like Proverbs 27:17 says, iron sharpens iron, which is why we try to help keep men accountable by teaching them what it means to be a godly man. So if you are just joining us, we are in part 2 of a series on purpose. In this series, we're breaking down what purpose is, where it comes from, how to find it, and how to find your gifts so that you can start your journey and pursue the purpose that God made specifically for you. So guys, in order to get the most out of this series, I'm going to ask you to grab a pen and paper and make sure you are actively listening and watch these in order. So if this is your first one, you are on part 2, go back and watch number 1. Don't skip to the end of the videos or just pick and choose. This took me a long time to learn, and I promise you won't pick it all up the first time you watch it. Pause the video, take notes, rewatch it as many times as you need, and reach out to me if you have any questions. That's what I'm here for. That's what the Man Within is here for. But guys, you can't cut any corners with this. You can't put the cart ahead of the horse. There's no shortcuts to this. So guys, at the end of each episode, I'll give you an exercise that's designed to help make you see from a different perspective and help you take a few powerful steps on your journey to finding purpose. And if you're interested in taking actionable steps with accountability from a group of men or one-on-one coaching, I've got a 40-day challenge that was created to help you implement some of the powerful habits that helped me and many others break free from their negative beliefs, get in the best shape of their life, start their business, and set their life up for success. So if you're interested in that, in this 40-day challenge, click on the link that says Join the Man Within community, or you can reach out to me directly at cameronwestcoaching@gmail.com, or you can find me on Instagram at the Man Within Podcast. So guys, with all that being said, let's go ahead and get back into our purpose series. So in the last episode, we covered what purpose is not and how the world leads us down a path of meaninglessness. But today we're going to define what purpose is from a biblical perspective. Understanding the definition of something is a tool that has helped me learn so much more about a certain topic, especially a complex one. A clear definition is half the battle. It uncovers a lot of the unknowns that you didn't realize were there and gives you more power to solve a problem because a definition breaks something down into smaller, easier steps that you're able to take in. In other words, it gives you direction and clarity. The funny thing is, your purpose is your life's direction. Without direction, you'll never hit your targets because you have none. And what I found in my life is that most people never hit any targets because they don't set any. And they don't set any targets because they don't know which ones to set. And they don't know which ones to set because they don't know who they are. And even if they do set targets, they're too afraid to go after them because everyone else who didn't set targets is trying to lead them down the same path of just being afraid to go after their own targets. So here's the problem. If you don't aim at anything, you'll hit everything. If you aim at everything, you'll hit nothing. If you don't set your own targets, you're going to allow everyone else to. This is why so many men and just people in general today are lost. These men, they're a shell of a man just drifting aimlessly, willing to accept whatever definition of themselves that they're fed. And guys, speaking from experience, that's a path that I was down. And 100% it's true. It is meaningless. And it feels like there is no purpose to your life. And I was just a shell of myself. And I'm sure that you guys can think of a few examples like that in your own life, if not you. But the truth is, if you don't know your purpose, this is what your life is eventually going to look like because God made us for a purpose with a purpose. And that purpose is to serve and glorify Him. I'm going to talk more about what this looks like in another episode, but today we're just going to stick with the definition of purpose. So, what is purpose? Purpose is the reason you exist. It's the reason God decided that this world needed you. It's the reason for each and every attribute and characteristic that you have. It's the reason for all of our uniqueness. To put it into words, this is how I've defined purpose. Purpose is the calling that God placed on your heart before He created you that is fully committed to serving others as an act of glorifying God. I'm going to say that one more time. Purpose is the calling that God placed in your heart before He created you that is fully committed to serving others as an act of glorifying God. Now, I understand there's a lot to unpack there. So, what we're going to do is we're going to go through each part of that definition one by one, starting with this first part, the calling God placed on your heart. Have you ever daydreamed about starting a particular business or going on a grand adventure or achieving some great thing that seems impossible? Are you afraid to tell others about it because they might think you're crazy? Do you yourself think it's crazy? Have you been dreaming about this thing for a long time? Well, there's a good chance that that's the calling that God has placed on your heart. A good way to determine if it's your calling is to number one, pray about it. And number two, ask yourself if there will ever be a time in your life when you won't have that dream. Will it ever leave your mind or your heart? And if it won't go away, it's because everything that shaped you to the man you are today has prepared you to pursue that specific dream. There's a reason that you're the only one having it. The reason you think it's crazy is because you haven't tried. You haven't branched out of your comfort zone. You haven't taken a step towards it and seeing the fulfillment that comes with it. And you're worried that no one else is having the same dream. But that's the point. You're not created to be just like everyone else. Eventually, you're going to have to do something different because you are different. You were created uniquely. To be unique means to be separate from everything else. Our calling comes from a divine origin that far surpasses our own understanding. There are plenty of verses in the Bible that talk about a calling, but 2 Timothy 1:9 lays it out perfectly. It says, He saved us and called us to a holy life, not because of anything we have done, but because of His own purpose and grace. There was nothing we needed to do, or even anything we could have done to receive a calling from God. We need to remember that we were created by God for God. It might be easy for us to understand that God created us, but it's difficult for us to accept and understand why He created us. It's even harder for us to surrender our life to Him and acknowledge that everything in this world, everything we have, everything that will ever be, already belongs to Him. That includes you and your life. The sooner we accept that, the sooner we can start our fulfilling journey of serving Him. This divine calling is what gives our life direction and meaning. And God created us with it because He is a loving God. He didn't just place us on this earth to wander through a meaningless existence. He wanted us to have a fulfilling life. Just like Jesus said in John 10:10, He came to give us life to the full. The only thing holding us back from fully pursuing God's purpose and receiving His gifts is our free will. We can't truly understand the calling unless we pray to God about it. And we can't walk into it if we don't let go of our own control and surrender our life to God. There is no other place we can go to find purpose other than God. Everything in this world is temporary, and none of it can be taken with you into heaven. Mark chapter 8, verse 36. Therefore, get your direction from God and start walking on God's path. Which brings me to the next part of the definition. He had a purpose for you before you were born. Like I said before, God isn't going to do anything if there's no reason for it. To Him, we are not just anything. We are everything. We are more valuable than all the creatures of the world, and God loved the world so much that he gave his only son to die for us. Yes, he did that for us. And you're still wondering if there's a good enough reason for you being here? God doesn't take shortcuts. He was patient when he made you. He crafted us before we were born and numbered all of our steps. He even counted each piece of hair on our heads. Ephesians 2:10 says, "We are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do." God's timeline works a little differently than our own. He knows everything that has happened to you, and he has everything planned out for you. Right now and 100 years from now happens in the same moment for him. That's why we must be patient and faithful, because one of your actions today may lead to someone else's blessing 100 years from now. A difficult battle today can prepare you for something amazing 1 year from now. Think about all of the amazing things that are still happening today because of what happened 2,000 years ago. If you're getting angry that things aren't happening quicker, you need to replace your expectations with faith and patience because it is His purpose and His timeline. But don't let that discourage you. God didn't put you here just to suffer. God Himself set aside an important mission for you. Do you think that mission will be boring? Do you think that it won't bring you fulfillment? Do you think God's gifts are less than the world's? Have you read any stories in the Bible? If you think your mission is too small or insignificant, or that it'll be too painful for you, remember whose mission you're talking about. If God is involved, it should be treated as the most important thing in your life because it is. And God won't give you a battle you can't overcome. He has everything planned out perfectly, and He will give you the tools you need at just the right time. That's why it's so important to remain patient and not try to take any shortcuts, because God didn't take any shortcuts when He created you. So, moving on to the next part of the definition, our purpose is rooted in serving others. Picture yourself on Christmas morning surrounded by your friends and family. You're getting ready to open your presents when you realize no one else has any gifts. Everyone chipped in to get you something, but you didn't get anything for anyone else. How comfortable would you be opening your gifts in front of everyone? Now imagine a different scenario where everyone had a gift except for your little cousin. While everyone is busy opening their gifts, you have compassion for your cousin and you give him your gift. How would it make you feel to see that smile on his face? When God made us, He intended us to serve others. It's an inherent desire, and we get so much joy from it. The gift of giving is so much greater than the gift of receiving. Even Jesus came not to be served, but to serve. Matthew 20, verse 28. And Galatians 5, verses 13 to 14 says, "Do not use your freedom as an opportunity for the flesh, but through love serve one another. For the whole law is fulfilled in one word, and that is, you shall love your neighbor as yourself." When Jesus was asked what the most important commandment was, he gave us two: love God with your whole heart, your mind, and your strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. When it comes to purpose, you'll know if it's from God if it ultimately helps and serves others. Purpose is not getting rich or becoming famous or sleeping with the most women you can. Purpose always seeks to help others because the Spirit of God is within you and it wants to go in God's direction. And God's direction seeks an eternal route, not a temporary one. The gifts that you receive from putting others ahead of yourself are eternal ones, like joy, peace, love. Those are things that you cannot get from pursuing the world. So, on to the last part of the definition. Our purpose is to glorify God. Although we all have our differences, there are a lot of things that are the same between us. We are all human, we all experience all emotions, we're all sinful by nature, and all of our callings lead to the same purpose, which is to glorify God. You can think of purpose as the ultimate end goal, and your calling is the means to get there. The purpose is the why, and your calling is the how. Essentially, everyone on earth is on God's team, and the main objective is to glorify God. We win the game if everyone is introduced to Jesus. Your calling is God's purpose for you on His team. When I say that we all have the same purpose, I'm saying that we should all have the same why. Your specific purpose is the reason God needed you here. It's your role on God's team. Some of us were given the role of leadership. Some of us are followers. Some of us are organizers. Some of us are thinkers. And some of us are creators. Whatever the role, it is important because it was given to you by God. And if God hadn't assigned a role for you, there'd be no reason for you being here. But just being here says that there is a purpose for you in God's grand vision. Also, whatever role you have today, that doesn't mean that that's the role you'll have tomorrow. We can grow and change, and we're supposed to. Just because you're a follower today doesn't mean you can't be a leader tomorrow. If you stay on God's path, He'll grow you out of one role and into another at just the right time. But God doesn't want us to remain in one place. That's why He laid out a path for us to follow and to pursue, and He gave us a calling. But He didn't intend for us all to be in the same exact path. Glorifying God is all of our purpose, but we all can do it differently. We all have a different calling to achieve the same objective. The Bible doesn't say that each of us have to go about glorifying God in just one way. 1 Corinthians 10:31 says, "So whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, do all to the glory of God." There are an infinite number of ways to glorify God and an infinite amount of glory that we can give to God in each of those ways. The best way to glorify God is to pursue your calling and to serve others. So I'll give you an example. If your calling is to be, let's say, an investor on Wall Street, you can do a lot of good with that. You could teach others about investing and lead them on a path to financial freedom. Or you could use your earnings to fund mission trips. Or you could even make your own mutual fund that's comprised only of kingdom-driven investment firms. So other investors can invest with you and they know that the money's being put to a good, godly use. And if you don't put a limit on your calling, you could make it your mission to put Christ at the center of Wall Street. The bottom line is that if it seems crazy to you, it's very possible to God. And one thing I've learned is that small dreams or small prayers or small goals are an insult to God's power because there is no limit to what God can do. There's no rule that says you can't expand your calling, but you definitely do not want to undercut or avoid what God has called you to do. If you are pursuing your calling for God's purpose, there's no limit to what God can do as long as you remain faithful. So I hope this has shown you how important you are to God, that He would take the time to intricately craft every part of you and your life for a very specific purpose. How amazing is that? I mean, I can't think of anything more encouraging than knowing that the creator of the universe needed me to fulfill his plans. He needed you just the same way. And every step that you take was mapped out, and every battle you're facing was meant for a higher purpose, a purpose to serve others. Yes, that means you can use what the enemy meant for evil and use it for good, to serve others, to spread more joy and love, and to spread the word of Jesus around with you wherever you go. I don't want to do anything except help God and his mission, and you shouldn't either. Living for God's purpose isn't meant to be limiting. It's meant to be fulfilling. And I know that when you hear me say our purpose is to glorify God, that it might sound like an arrogant, egotistical God, but the truth is our purpose is to love God, serve others, and pursue a calling that God gave us. God is a loving God. If we are to glorify him, if that's our purpose, he's going to make it exciting. That's why he gave each of us a specific calling. And when you think about it, when you talk about it, you get a fire in your heart. You get passionate. You get lit up. That's the point. It was never his intention to give us a boring life. It'll be difficult, but it'll also be fulfilling. And I can tell you from experience, as soon as you step on that path, it is difficult, but it's also the most rewarding. So to wrap this episode up, I'm going to give you the definition one more time and a quick exercise to help you get some more clarity on your purpose. So here's that definition one more time. Purpose is defined as the calling that God placed on your heart before he created you that is fully committed to serving others as an act of glorifying God. We glorify God by pursuing the calling of our heart, and the calling of our heart always serves others. So, guys, here's the exercise. I'm just going to give you a few questions. I want you to write them down, and I want you to spend a considerable amount of time thinking through these. So, question number one: can you think of a calling that's been on your heart for a long time? What is it? Can you imagine it ever leaving your heart or your mind? Does it seem crazy to you? What would happen if you told others about it? Do you think that God can make it happen? What battles have you been through that have equipped you to serve others? And in what way? What things have happened in your life that the enemy meant for evil that God can use for good? In other words, what battles have you overcome? What would happen if you took some time to see how you could make your calling become a reality? What steps could you take right now? And what happens 5, 10, or 15 years from now if you try to ignore it? Guys, thank you so much for listening. If you gained any value from this, please make sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment on which topic you'd like to learn more about. In the next episode, we'll be walking through how you can find your gift and your specific calling. But until then, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.